Welcome to Our National Conversation, a podcast in which we discuss politics from all angles. We are completely nonpartisan, and all views, respectfully stated, are welcome here. Our podcast is unique in that it is hosted and run by students who are focused on finding solutions to the biggest problems facing America.
Hello, everyone. I'm Taylor Lopez. Thank you all for joining us. And today we'll be discussing artificial intelligence, more commonly known as AI, and the growing role it plays in our everyday lives. From the apps we use to the content we consume to the way businesses tend to operate and students learn, AI has very much been increasingly difficult to avoid. While conversations about AI often focus on the future, it's important to remember that AI isn't entirely new. Many of the tools and algorithms that we are constantly using is powered by AI in some form for past years. While technology continues to evolve, so do a lot of questions about its impact on our society, education, business, mental health, and even the environment. As always, we're here to have open discussions and balanced conversations and hear different perspectives. So, if we are to get started, I just wanted to start off asking if you guys regularly use AI.
I tend to use it. Not every single day, but yeah. Like a ChatGPT, for example. Like if I have questions about a project or, you know, creating images for Uncle Sam, I would use mostly ChatGPT to do some research about it.
I use AI every day, probably for several hours a day. And my choice right now is Claude.ai. I've moved in that direction. I started with ChatGPT, and then I tried Perplexity, and then I tried Claude. I think they're all evolving at warp speed. They're so much better today than they were even 6 months ago, but I'm very impressed with what these things can do.
I feel like I don't use ChatGPT and Claude every single day. I do use those occasionally, but I have noticed even if I go to Google something now, there's the new kind of feature where you ask a question and it just gives you an AI response immediately. And I don't know if that's something you can turn on or off, but it's on mine and it always shows up every time I Google something.
Same here. I try to avoid AI, especially just being in academia, but when you do Google something, I mean, even like professors that I work with, we talk about this, like it's unavoidable at this point. Like you Google something and the first thing that pops up is the AI, summary. And sometimes it can actually be helpful. It kind of shortens your search. It provides sources. So I'm okay. I'm okay with the AI summary a little more than I am with ChatGPT and the other AI chatbot type of things for several reasons. One of them being like accuracy and like sources and things like that. But yeah, try to avoid it, but it is at this point pretty much unavoidable. So.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
because of how much AI has been just like easily implicated into like just everything we do, like every app basically has AI being constantly used. If you were to go on TikTok and instead of the blue link being related video, sometimes it's like an AI overview of just a topic. So we know it's like constantly in our everyday lives, but specifically business, I've noticed that many companies have begun incorporating AI. Here in ONC, we use it for our Uncle Sam projects. It has been like something very present. And I was just wondering, do you guys have any companies in mind that you think are effectively using AI in a positive way?
I would love to jump in on that one. We are our national conversation, and we call ourselves ONC for short. And what we do is we produce a media outlet that shows all sides of political conversation. So we show the news from multiple sources. They can be liberal, moderate, conservative. We don't care. We like them all. We think people should be exposed to a wide range of media points of view. We do the same thing with our commentators. We have quite a few writers, mostly college students. We have liberals, we have moderates, we have conservatives. They're all welcome. We do podcasts like this, and when the topic is highly politicized, sometimes things get a little bit heated, but not too much. We're generally a very civil group. And so I have been dabbling in AI and encouraging our team to get more involved in AI in terms of producing graphic arts and videos and social media campaigns. And um, I've been doing some business plans using AI. I mean, the thing that's incredible about it, in my view, is that, well, I did a business plan yesterday for something that we're working on. And normally that could easily have taken a week to pull together all the charts, the graphs, the numbers, the logos, all that stuff. It took 5 or 10 minutes, and that was it. And the skill that everybody needs to learn if you're going to learn and use AI is how to ask good questions and how to give very clear directions. And I think because of my journalistic background, Kansas City Star, LA Times, Brentwood News, I know how to ask really simple questions. And that it's important because if you throw something at the AI that's too complicated, you will confuse the AI. It's not perfect. And even when you do a good job, or so you think, asking the question properly or giving clear directions, AI still can get it wrong. So you have to go back and forth multiple times until the AI really understands exactly what you're looking for and what to give you. But it works. I mean, so even if it's a little frustrating that you have to go back and forth 5 or 6 times, in the aggregate, the time required to do, say, this business plan was 5 or 10 minutes versus a week. So I just think it's incredibly effective and efficient. And I'm always in a hurry and I'm always feeling behind. So AI is helping me get ahead of the curve here.
Just to add to that, yeah, I think I've used AI quite a bit. I like using Claude. I used to do ChatGPT. I once used it for making a financial report, like using an Excel sheet to combine data from different sheets into one that I could present to owners. And that project used lots of different formulas in Excel. And if I did it manually, it would have taken me maybe a week or at least 2 weeks, but with AI, I could do it in 2 days. Now, I still like to check the output, but checking the output took less time than doing everything from scratch. And so I think in that sense, uh, if you know enough of your stuff and you know how to use AI, it can still be a useful tool for businesses.
I was wondering, do you guys think that when businesses use AI, that should be disclosed, or are businesses like commonly putting it out there that they use AI? With Instagram, it's pretty in your face. They'll tell you that they have their own AI chat box. Although, if it were to be a little more hidden, do businesses have that right to tell their audience that AI is being used?
In this business plan that I keep referring to, I am saying right in there that I used AI to help me do it. I don't have any problem with that. I mean, the truth is the truth. A source is a source. You know, if you're writing a news story and quoting another article written by another publication, the right thing to do is to note that and to give proper attribution to the original source. So I think doing that for your AI support is perfectly fine. I'm not sure it's even needed though, because as somebody pointed out, everybody's using it now. It's almost like, why waste everybody's time telling them that you used AI when everybody knows you're using AI? But I don't know.
I think it's particularly important to disclose when it comes to art, at least, with creators, because you are seeing a lot of AI art. And I think that it kind of discredits artists who spend hours and hours and hours making a piece. And, then there's AI who can do it in 5 minutes, but it wasn't created by a human. And I think I know personally, like I would be upset if I purchased a painting or something along those lines, and that painting was created by AI. I would want to know that it was created by AI and not a human. But then again, that's a small thing. It's more so a matter of opinion because I do appreciate art quite a bit. But I'm sure that everybody has, even those who do use AI, I'm sure that everyone has some small fear that, some area is going to suffer because of it. So, like, maybe even, tech, people who are getting their degrees in tech, right? AI, there's the potential for AI to like take their jobs and things like that. And so I just think that for me, I personally would prefer that it is disclosed, so that I know if there was time taken to create this, if a human thought it up or a computer, it it's just something that matters to me. And I'm not entirely sure why at this point, why it matters to me so much. Maybe I just need to get used to AI more, but it is something that I would like to see disclosure rights. Because Jeff also made a good point. You have to cite your sources, right? When you're using somebody else's work, whether it's in writing or media or whatever it is, you have to cite them because they're the people that did the work. And so I think this same thing, if it's AI, then it should be cited as AI.
Yeah, you also brought up a great point in the job market as well, that some jobs are going to be kind of losing some people due to what AI can provide. Are there any jobs that you believe AI could possibly replace?
Yeah, just actually, this is interesting because I did write an article on AI, its impact on the job market. And what I found was it had a higher impact on white collar jobs, but at the entry level, uh, upwards of 35% of entry level jobs were cut. And that also kind of affected me because I also am a recent graduate. So I guess I'm part of that data point. So, yes, I think can cause a disruption, particularly for, uh, entry level, workers. And I also think the larger issue is the pipeline, because if you're graduating college and you need these entry level jobs to work up the career ladder, and that is taken off, then you have less of a structural framework to help these college graduates build their skill in the job market. And that's why there's been recent skepticism. If you look at the news of college graduates booing speakers who are praising AI, because even though AI could have its benefits in terms of a growth in productivity, there's also those negative side effects that we have to account for.
I feel like this isn't necessarily AI related, but even kind of just technology related. Like when I go into a fast food place or something, it's now not people at the counters, and you go up to these kiosks and you order on the kiosk, and we're already seeing kind of like smaller things get replaced. And there has been recently, I feel like it has been harder to get jobs post grad, and there kind of is a more decline almost in that. And I feel like that could kind of attribute to the rise in AI and things like that. And I would also argue now in the job market, they're looking for a lot more, and they want a lot more other jobs, and they want to see all these like things on your resume and that you've done all of this, and that can kind of be harder with the rise of AI.
I'm going to offer you guys a cautionary tale and then spin it into the moral of the story. So years ago, I started this little newspaper called the Brentwood News. I happen to have a copy right here. And don't ask me how, but it still survives, but just barely. So I was into the Brentwood News starting in 1991, and then the internet started to take off in earnest around 1995, 1996. And a lot of my colleagues in the newspaper business said, "Wow, have you seen the internet? Have you heard about the internet?" And of course, it was taking off quite rapidly, and everybody was aware of it. And I looked at it and I said, "Well, why would anybody want to read their news on a screen when they can read it in an old-fashioned newspaper, which is so comfortable and happy and familiar?" And those of us who clung to the past, like I did, got savaged as a result. This Brentwood News turned into a financial disaster. We got creamed by the internet and other factors. Huge newspapers like the LA Times, where I used to work, are a small fraction of what they used to be. They used to have thousands of employees, and now they have a handful of employees. And the LA Times is reportedly losing $50 million a year. They didn't make the transition to the internet fast enough. And by the time they did, Google and Facebook and X and all these other things had come out of nowhere, and they just dominated the industry. And all of these digital players didn't need traditional media to do what they did. They just went right around traditional media. There was something called Craigslist, still there. This guy overnight wiped out all the classified advertising sections of every newspaper in America and made gazillions doing it. So I had friends who saw the future better than I did. And the reason I wanted to hold on to my Brentwood News so tightly was that I just spent 3 or 4 years building it up and spent a lot of money doing that and a lot of effort. And I love my paper, and I didn't want to change, because I loved what I was doing. And now, years later, those who made the move early and got out of newspapers and then went online, a lot of them are multi-gazillionaires. They got all the stock options and all the good stuff. And so what I'm saying here, here's the moral of the story, is that if I were young right now, I would jump on board this train. It's a fast-moving train. It's accelerating quickly. If you don't jump on quickly, you're going to be left behind. And there's no stopping it. I don't think anybody here can tell me a single technology in the entire history of mankind that somehow got blocked because people were made nervous by it. It's going to happen. So I'm kind of I'm on the rampage here. I feel like, okay, I missed the internet. I didn't do a good job there. I'm sure as hell not going to miss AI. So I am very in favor of what I see happening here. And I think it's going to create huge opportunities for those of you who are smart enough to say, I'm in.
Yeah, I think that's a really important perspective because it highlights how, resisting technology isn't always like the winning strategy. There's, of course, like pros and cons, specifically with AI, but at the same time, I don't think the conversation should only be about whether AI is coming, because obviously we know it is. Well, the question should be, how could we choose to implement AI? Every major technological like shift has its own like winners and losers and this kind of thing. And I think we as people have to take responsibility to think about who might be left behind when we support these kind of systems and how it's going to change ideally. I know with education, it's been taking a huge hit. I'm currently a student, and as I talk with some of my peers, using AI has just been something that might be something that they used to cheat off of or get easy answers. We are losing a lot of integrity, and AI is also being just more commonly placed in classrooms, in workplaces like personal training. As a student or maybe someone who already graduated, do you guys see AI as like a learning tool or maybe even a shortcut?
I'm gonna go ahead and give my 2 cents on this first. So I am a part-time professor, and it is something that in academia is a huge issue. Now, that being said, we are at a point where we realize, okay, this is here for good. It's not going anywhere. And so we're currently trying to find out ways to work with it, as in like, use AI in the classroom or critiquing AI. That being said, at this point in time, it is widely used to cheat. And I know it is because, I'm about to be 30, so I'm on the younger side and I'll be walking behind students, right? And so I could be a college student. They don't know. And there have been, I would say at least 5 times every semester, I walk behind someone saying, yeah, like I used ChatGPT for for my exam and I got an A, or yeah, I just used ChatGPT to write it, and things like that. And I've actually had to take essays out of my curriculum because couple of semesters ago, I think it was something like 90% of the papers that I got were AI generated. And I'm seeing, and I think it also has an effect on critical thought as well. And I think it has an effect on people's ability to discuss topics because you're not necessarily learning. You're observing information, but you're not really learning. And so when it's, you use ChatGPT to learn about a subject, you're kind of limited in a way. And when it's time to kind of discuss that topic, a lot of the time nobody wants to discuss it. Like they don't have enough information to discuss it. And so I think it's a really big problem in academia. Again, it's here to stay. So we are kind of trying to figure out a way to incorporate it into curriculums. But, I'm sure there are students who use it to help them. But from what I've seen, majority of them use it to just cheat, essentially, and have them, write an entire 8 to 10 page paper for them, and maybe they'll go in and change a few things and XYZ. And we didn't have any of this when I graduated. And I also think it has an negative effect on people's ability to write because writing takes practice. Even if you're good at it naturally, you'll get better if you practice writing. And I look back at my papers in undergrad and I'm like, oh my God, these are awful. Like they're so bad. But because I continued to write, I consider myself a really good writer now. And I think that with ChatGPT, that kind of takes that opportunity away. You are learning, you might be learning new words and this and this and that, but you're not really throwing yourself in there and learning how to write well. And yeah, so I'll stop there because I could continue for an hour about this and I'll let other people talk, but that's just my perspective.
I just want to also provide my perspective as well. Uh, I actually agree with Olivia on some of her points that AI can be a tool that weakens critical thinking if you rely on it too much. So, what we need to do instead of trying to ban AI, I think a way to think about it is since AI is already here, how do we teach people to use it while maintaining their critical thinking? Uh, and I want to go back to an analogy with chess because chess is an area where AI had developed quite early, and even in the 1990s, it became more advanced than the top grandmaster, Garry Kasparov. And once the computer systems were able to beat the best grandmasters in the world, people were afraid that it would ruin the chess world, that people would just use chess engines and it would ruin the ability for chess to maintain the quality that it has. But what we have found is over time, the anti-cheating detectors have been improved. So now we can reliably detect whether someone is cheating when they play chess. And the top players actually use the computers to prepare before a match to figure out how to break existing chess theory to come up with new moves. Magnus Carlsen has famously talked about how he has used computer moves to figure out how to break his way of thinking and innovate new moves in games of chess. And so, if we use that analogy, we can also look at AI as sort of that system that as the technology improves, we can improve the cheating detecting system, and we can also improve how people can use AI to innovate and improve their critical thinking. Yeah.
You know, this touches on a very sensitive topic, which is national security. AI is being used to figure out how to hack and interfere with and destroy the enemy. Well, at the same time, they're doing the exact same thing to us. And it's almost like a war is escalating here to see who can come up with the smartest chatbots to destroy the other side. And that's a scary thought that AI could become so smart it could basically, take down a country. We'll see how that unfolds in the future. But now that we're in this arms race, I don't see how we get out of it. It's like, when somebody first came up with an airplane, well, then the other side had to have an airplane. And, when somebody came up with a tank, the other side needed to get a tank. So now that everybody out there is using AI as a weapon, you can't just unilaterally give up and say, well, we're not going to do it because we don't think it's very nice. Because if we did that, then everybody would destroy us. So it's an existential thing that we have to take into consideration.
Yeah, AI has just been used a lot more in ways that we might not like really expect. Jeff, you brought up a great point. There's so many aspects of AI that's being just used over in general. I know for my experience, I have a few friends who have even used AI to top over onto their mental health. They might talk to AI as almost like a therapist and be maybe not dependent, but use that as like a shoulder. Um, One of these like surprising developments of it is that there's so many studies shown already that a number of people are using AI for that emotional support, advice, conversation. AI isn't exactly the most evolved yet in giving proper advice in how we should handle situations. Recently, there was a news story shown that ChatGPT was helping a student who was going through a lot of mental health problems, and their response from chat was feeding and enabling maybe not so positive behavior because we have not learned to evolve AI just yet. I was wondering, why do you guys think people are turning to AI for emotional support? Is it just a sense of security, being able to talk to someone who you might not really know, or is it almost a convenient thing?
I feel like part of it could be that we were kind of during the time of COVID, we were communicating a lot through our devices and we didn't get as much of that in-person connection. And even with just the rise of technology and everything, I feel like that's a big thing we're kind of lacking right now in our society is just that like face-to-face connection. And maybe it is kind of a crutch and emotional support, kind of easier to just talk on your phone or computer and stuff. And I was kind of in my class a couple semesters ago, we were talking about AI and kind of the mental health aspect of where people kind of were turning to it and how that can be problematic in ways because AI kind of is always taking your side and it's kind of there to support you and uplift you. So if one person is kind of having more negative thoughts, AI isn't a great crutch to kind of like give some common like sense and it kind of will just support like oh yeah like that's okay you're feeling that way and it almost sides with the person which can kind of lead to them almost feeling worse about themselves or just thinking almost like maybe a victim building a victim mindset in someone and so I feel like it can be problematic in those ways.
Absolutely. I think it's due to two reasons that people are leaning on AI as like a mental health crutch. I think the first one being just accessibility, first of all, to therapy and services. It's really expensive, and people just don't have the money, or the many people don't have the money or the resources to spend $200 for an hour session, right? So that's one thing. Another thing that I think people are turning to AI more for mental health help is there's like not really a commitment there. When you see a therapist and you're having, an issue, more than likely they're going to want to see you back next week or, in 2 weeks, or they're going to, create some plan where they're just going to continue to see you. And there are some people who don't believe in therapy. I know Dave, who is a OMC member, said he is anti-psychology, and I was like, "What?" But there are some people who don't believe in therapy for one, and two, there also is a limit in therapy. So they're like 50-minute sessions for the most part. You could just sit there for 6 hours at a time and chat with the AI bot. So it's like essentially a 6 hour quote unquote therapy session. So I think just accessibility and the lack of commitment and the timeliness of it, those are two things that I think contribute to why people are reaching out towards chatbots.
You know, I read the news all the time, and I've heard that a lot of people become so dependent on their AI for mental health counseling that some have actually been driven to suicide, and they've gone through the old chats to see what happened. And they said that the chatbots were giving perfectly horrible advice. I think in one case, the chat AI was actually telling somebody, go ahead and kill yourself. So that's obviously a problem. Now, I do think that AI is getting better and better. I mean, I've witnessed it almost on a weekly basis that it can do things today that it couldn't do, a month ago. And so I have to believe this could actually be a helpful thing. I mean, there are a lot of people out there with mental health issues who have nobody to talk to and they can't afford to go to a therapist. So if the systems become good enough and strong enough, which I think they will, I think this could be a positive thing.
Do you think that AI could ever replace that more human kind of connection? Or is this just something like that we brought up before? Maybe convenience or just that emotional crutch, but is it replaceable?
Hmm. No, I wouldn't say fully replaceable. I mean, maybe like on pen and paper, maybe it is, but you can't really bond with AI the same way you can really bond with a human being. Like you can't feel, say, a warm, comforting hug from your phone, you know?
That's
Stuff
a
like
great
that.
idea for an invention. We should create arms that come out of the computer and give you a big hug whenever you want one.
I would agree that it's not fully replaceable. I feel like a big thing that humans can kind of bond over is life experiences, and you can give advice based on like things you've been through and things like that. That's a thing I've found I bond with people about. And I just think obviously technology, though it can have a lot of information and things like that, it's like actual real life experiences is where you kind of get those connections. I have seen though it has been taken far, and I saw a video about someone who married their like AI chat box type thing. And so that's just very interesting that it can get to that point with people. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing with AI is that it doesn't feel pain or hasn't demonstrated that it feels pain. And sometimes the way humans connect is through suffering and also through shared experiences, as Ava has laid out. So we can't relate to AI in the same way that we can relate to a human being. So I think that's one of the gaps that we can't really. It's that's the hardest part when it comes to differentiating humans and AI. And there's a debate with regards to whether AI embodies consciousness. Uh, Richard Dawkins had a conversation with Claude AI, and even though he wasn't convinced it had consciousness, he argued that there were some aspects of Claude that represented consciousness to him. So, how well can AI simulate consciousness is also a question that we have to ask ourselves.
Another part of this conversation is how much it takes to power AI. I was just wondering if you guys have any thoughts or are you guys like aware of the significance using the energy, the water, like all the resources it takes to power and use AI?
I am. Again, I read the news all the time. So, yes, this is a very hot topic. And the move right now is for AI companies to be required to supply and pay for their own energy and water. They were building these data centers all over the place, and the demands on the system were such that the bills for the electricity were going up, and the general population being served by that utility company ended up paying higher utility bills, and people were getting upset because they said, we're not using more electricity in our home. It's that data center over there. Well, of course, they're charging the data center, but this is all new and we're all getting used to it. And nobody knew how fast this whole thing was going to take off. And the utility companies are under strain now, and they're having a hard time keeping up with just serving residential needs. So the data centers is just a compounding injury, and there's no doubt there's a huge scramble on to try to figure out how to supply this energy.
Yeah, I actually wrote an article maybe a few months back talking about like the hidden costs of AI and how it's been taking over like millions of gallons just to kind of use AI because it takes so much power. And with the water, we needed to cool it down. Jeff, you brought up a point of should companies or organizations be reliable to managing their cost of their own use of AI? And if so, like, how should we implement that? Do we think that who should be really responsible of managing these costs?
Oh, I think they should be responsible for their own. I mean, they're making a lot of money. This is a high margin business and they're investing billions in it, but they expect to make gazillions in return. So they're going to do okay with this. And I think that they really should supply their own energy and water or pay for it anyway.
Do you guys believe that the benefits outweigh more of the environmental concerns using AI? Would you guys, overall, just easy, is AI worth it when it comes down to the environment?
I feel like when I use AI, I always kind of have this like moral dilemma and almost like cognitive dissonance because like there's so many pros about it, but I just always feel guilty about the environmental effects and just with everything like going on in the world, our environment's been taking like a hit recently and everything. And I just feel like I am part of the problem in that aspect, but it's hard because it is here, as we said, and there's not really a way to get rid of it. So I think learning regulations and stuff, and there probably are ways we can efficiently use it that aren't as having a bad effect on the environment. But yeah.
Yeah, I think the hard part is it's hard for me to visualize the cost when I'm using an AI, when I'm putting a prompt into Claude and it gives me an answer. It's hard for me to think, okay, how much did it cost the environment for me to put this prompt in? So that's where I need more information. I'm happy to learn more about that because uh, if I see only the benefits when I'm using AI, but the problem is with external costs like environment, it's very hard to visualize that in real time. And then by the time the external costs catch up with us, it's often too late to adapt. And so I think I can't, as a user right now, I find it hard to answer whether it's worth it. Um, but I think if we learn more about how the external costs are related to the benefits, it might be easier to visualize.
Yeah, I think overall we'll have to kind of wait it out and see more what the impact of AI will do. But in this kind of conversation, we already did talk about the business, education, mental health, and more of like the environmental impact. And I really appreciate all of you guys coming in and joining this conversation, sharing your perspectives. This kind of conversation is always going to be changing. It's going to be something that needs to be consistently adapting because of how much AI is empowering people and these tools, or even something that creates possibly new challenges and how we may have to depend on it or how we choose to use it moving forward. So I think we can all kind of talk about this in conversations with friends, family. It's a very easy topic to just kind of wrap up. But thank you all for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
This podcast was brought to you by Our National Conversation, a place where students generate policy solutions to the biggest problems facing America. Join us in freeing political dialogue from hyperpartisanship. To learn more about what you heard today, check us out at ournationalconversation.org. You can also follow us on social media at Our National Conversation to show your support and keep up with our latest efforts.